Rachel here. Welcome to my Slow TV Stitchery. Well, good morning everybody. You will see that we are back with the Christmas angel, and that is partly because I've worked out, I think, how to do her hair, which is masses and masses of pearl cotton French knots, and partly because I had a rather torrid time with Akhenaten yesterday, and I think I may have finished him. So there is either more to be done that I haven't found yet, or there is no more to be done, and in either case I have nothing to show you. I will write up the final details for the blog, of course, but at the moment I'm hiding him so that I can look with fresh eyes to determine whether I really have finished. And I've noticed that that's a decision I'm not very good at making. When I've just stopped stitching. It seems to be something which I just can't make the judgment. I'm torn between being so fed up that I want it to be finished and so dissatisfied with what I've done that obviously it can't possibly be finished, because if it were I would be pleased with it. And that is, how shall I put it, that's not actually a judgment that one should trust. When I had first finished Leaving the Tyne, I hated it, and I do genuinely believe it's the best thing I've done yet. So judgment calls are not my strong suit, perhaps. So the angel is getting a mass of curls, and it's just 10 stitches in pearl cotton. It is in fact a variegated pearl cotton, although the variegation is so slight that it's not by any means obvious. So I had a reminder on Facebook a few days ago of the great ladies magazine StitchOff of 4 or so years ago. And in particular of a concert of Baroque music that I went to at about the time I was stitching it. Now, Baroque is not quite the right period for a lot of the ladies magazine designs, which were leading more into the classical period. But when the ladies magazine copies with the embroidery designs in were found, they also had some of the sheet music, which is another element of the magazines which was not usually included in the bindings, so has been very hard to track down. And I found myself thinking that it would be, if only there were enough music, it would be an interesting exercise for some musicians to put together the recordings of the music with the embroidery designs to give us all a slightly better idea of what went with what. I'm not sure that there's enough which is securely tied to the relevant magazine for us to do that as yet, which is a pity, but after all, these things, for all they were often bound at the end of the year, are actually intended as ephemera. So any survival at all is a bonus. But having been reminded of that, I've been thinking again about music to stitch to. And I know a lot of people who will stitch with an audio book or a podcast on. That doesn't work at all for me. I either become lost in the story and stop stitching, or I fail to follow what's going on in the podcast because I'm concentrating on the stitching. It would be fair to say that as multitaskers go, I'm not one of the most skilled. However, I asked for comments, and one of my friends said that he couldn't possibly sew to swing music, much as he loves it. Although he reckons he could probably do the dusting. But Gregorian chant might work rather nicely. I haven't tried that. It's certainly worth a go. And there were other suggestions. One of my friends on Twitter was asking for music to write to, and there was the usual, oh no, I can't write except in silence, and Bach, and somebody else suggested the Lark Ascending. Which is certainly not stitching music. That tends to provoke stillness when you listen to it properly. At least it does for me. Does at least make for interesting speculation. This is one of these occasions when I surprise myself. I am not fond of French knots as a rule. But every now and again they are absolutely the choice, and under those circumstances I uncomplainingly sit down and will quite happily do hundreds of them. While still remembering 10-year-old me, and actually 15-year-old me, struggling unavailingly to produce a French knot that didn't disappear to the back of the fabric. It is not entirely trivial to fit in all these knots, because the last thing I want to do in this case is allow the canvas to dictate placement. It has to look curly and a bit woolly. Rather like mine looks first thing in the morning when it's short enough. Not at the moment. Now there is thought to conjure with. Again, I'm not quite sure which way I'm going to jump. Whether to leave the angel's features blank, which would certainly be easier, but also given the state of given the amount of pattern, I am rather wondering whether I would be better served by leaving the features undefined, after all, nothing about this is remotely plausible in any real sense. I certainly don't need to worry about someone telling me that no, this is entirely wrong, they don't look like that, because someone pointed out to me a Wikipedia page of some Cuban angels of the Baroque period who were fully armoured and carrying arquebus, which was a sort of gun, I think, a cross between a gun and a crossbow. So once we have that as a possibility, an angel without any features but with gold skin seems very small beer. Makes me feel positively unimaginative.
That's all for this session. I hope you enjoyed following along. Happy stitching!